Welcome to another episode of Consumer Engagement in an Omnichannel World. Our co-hosts, Shri Rajagopalan and Peter V.S. Bond, explore how brands and retailers engage with consumers in store, online, and everywhere in between. And now, here are Shri and Peter. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Consumer Engagement in an Omnichannel World. I'm your co-host, Peter V.S. Bond. I'm also the Vice President of Retail Strategy at Power Reviews. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host. He is an e-commerce luminary. He's an entrepreneur. He is the peanut butter to my jelly, the Turner to my hooch, and the gin to my tonic. We know him only by one name. He is Shri. Shri, how you doing today?
I'm doing awesome, but I'm going to wait and see how long he says that when Yankees-Dodgers rivalry continues. Still up by 2 games, my friend.
Broken record. Shri, thanks for joining us today. I'm really excited about our guest today. Now, I met him a decade ago. So let me give you the background. I've just accepted a new job. I moved to Cincinnati. I've been assigned the Coca-Cola business supporting Kroger. And within 3 days, I am summoned up to Blue Ash to meet with the account team leader for Coca-Cola. I walk into his office and he proceeds to give me about 45 minutes of feedback on the reason why there is not harmony between his company and mine as a service provider. And I think it came down to the fact that people weren't listening and weren't being empathetic and weren't trying to solve problems. They were simply trying to push those problems onto someone else. So I spent the first part of my time trying to address that and successfully did so to the point where 3 years later, I was very proud to nominate him to be a member of the Shopper Marketing Hall of Fame. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome my dear friend, one of my favorite people in the industry, from Coca-Cola, John Mount. John, how are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, guys, how's it going? This is awesome. I'll tell you what, it was loving feedback, Peter. There was no doubt in my mind. It was all in with good intent, good spirit. And after that introduction, I'm bringing you everywhere with me, man. You're the best hype man I could ever have.
I got to tell you, John, I always look at feedback as a gift. It is an opportunity to improve. And the fact that you and I have become even closer friends over the last decade is a testament to that. So thank you for that. But John is now serving as a vice president of sports marketing and regional assets, and we'll get into some of that. When I met him, as I told you, he was running the Kroger business. So John, we're going to start off with a series of questions. Shri and I will interchange. But if you're game with this, we should have some fun because our goal here is to learn kind of what you do and how what you're doing helps in Coca-Cola engage effectively with shoppers.
Love it.
So you've been at Coca-Cola for, over 2 decades now, right? 22 years by my count. And most of those were in sales roles. And then in 2011, right after I met you moved to the mothership. You went down to Atlanta and you took on a role in commercial strategy and customer marketing. What kind of drove you to say that's a really interesting opportunity that would take me out of what was a more traditional kind of a sales role?
Yeah, well, prior to Coke, I was at Nabisco for 7 years, predominantly all in sales leadership, sales management, calling on the stores originally. Got into category management, loved category management. And at one point in time, I had a great mentor, Carl Sweat. Carl highly suggested that I really learn, the marketing side of the business. So took a little detour out to St. Louis early on in my career at Coke and really began to fine tune marketing skills. Still consider myself a salesperson at heart. But the opportunity when I left Cincinnati back in 2011 to come down to Atlanta was really a great opportunity to just take on a whole new challenge and really get more cross-functional experience. I'm a huge believer, for those that we may have students on, taking a listen to this, huge believer in just not specializing in one thing and how do you drive that cross-functional experience. So it was really just a great opportunity to come down, lead our commercial work, really lean in from a strategy standpoint and build those skills, strategic thinking skills, strategy skills across all of our different large store channels, and then ultimately all of our retail channels. And really just a great opportunity. You know, Coca-Cola is a very unique company. You obviously have the Coca-Cola company supporting all of our bottling system, who is our distributor, or our distributors. And so just having the opportunity to work with them and collaborate across the system was just a great opportunity. And obviously it's parlayed into this role as well, which has been fantastic.
Great.
So John, first of all, welcome to the show. It's always an awesome day when you have a favorite alum from beverages. Of course, we now have Pepsi and Coke wars going on, but welcome to the show. And it's awesome
against you.
And it's
he
always
got over
awesome
it with me.
When I can use the word DST with somebody and they know what I'm talking about, because I often find today's digitally grown ecosystems cannot relate to that word anymore. But how awesome is that?
Yep.
So looking through your career, John, your current role, of course, is to head sports marketing and regional assets, which again, coming from Pepsi, very familiar with what that means. But could you decompose what a day in the life of a leader in sports marketing and regional assets means for our listeners, and how you got into this specific role?
Yep, absolutely. So, you know, my team's responsible for collaborating and working closely with our national assets. So we've got great national assets like the USOC with the Olympics and the NCAA and our relationship with college football and college game day. So my team's really responsible for working with all of those great assets. PGA Tour, Soccer United that manages, you know, the Mexican national team, the U.S. national teams, the Major League Soccer, the league itself. So we work super close with them with the intent of getting these assets and the ability to market these assets into the hands of our customer teams, both on our retail side of the business and on our food service side of the business. I've also got all of our region marketing assets. So it's the first time that we pulled together not only our national assets, but also our local assets. So think about, all the colleges and universities that are out there, the local pro sports teams. My team's responsible for partnering with almost 240 colleges and universities out there. And of course, the most important one, the University of Notre Dame. Go Irish. But, we work closely with them on a regular basis. And I've also got a field marketing team that does an amazing job of supporting key brands from an experiential standpoint, from a sampling standpoint. Brands like Topo Chico, Honest Tea, bringing those to life with our national asset big experiential initiatives like at a Daytona 500 or at a Major League Soccer All-Star game, as well as, big events around playoffs, around potentially the Major League World Series or around the Super Bowl with driving sampling and experiential with those brands. So, we're really responsible for enabling and creating business plans with those partners, ensuring that we have great marketing platforms that can be leveraged, again, across retail, food service, and with our bottlers in each and every market across the country. And at the end of the day, I'd wrap it up and put a bow on it and say we're really here to inspire the system to enable us to just drive additional revenue and profits across the board. The way I got into the role, I was leading our customer marketing for national retail sales, and Jim Dinkins, who is our president of Coca-Cola North America, had asked me to really look at this role and ensure that, we could get these amazing shiny toys, these assets into the hands of our customer teams and just optimize them more to drive additional revenue and profits. So it's really been a lot of fun. It's a amazing opportunity and a blessing to lead these great partnerships, and that's what they truly are.
John, that's great. Let's double click down a little bit. I'd sure love to know how your team thinks about matching the assets to the resources you have, the retailers. What's kind of like the day-to-day work that they're doing to ensure that the right asset is deployed against the right strategy or touch point?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, this won't surprise you, but we use a ton of consumer and fan and student insights that are available to us from a lot of different sources out there. Octagon is one of our best partners. They help us with really understanding the consumer, the fan, the student, and what excites them. We're really on a great journey right now. We want to lean into more assets that are going to help us recruit the next generation of drinkers. But we use tools like Scarborough at the end of the day that can really help us understand at a Walmart, for instance, what assets, what passion points index the highest with the Walmart consumer, with the Kroger consumer. And then we obviously use a lot of other insights like 8451 and back in the day, Dunnhumby, as it was known when I was on the Kroger business. And
I'm vaguely familiar with them, John.
yeah, I know that. And, recognizing that the Kroger shopper mom really leaned in and loved NASCAR and loved the Daytona 500. And that's how, that initiative really came to be. But insights are key to us really understanding the assets that we want, number one, and then number two, marrying them up with the right retailers. And look, again, it goes back to the A1 reason I came into this role was to help get these assets into the hands of our retailers and to be able to speak their language and to drive a return on the investments that we make with these assets. So it's been a great journey. We're making a lot of great progress and really making a difference for our business.
Good.
I'm just thrilled we have a guest that we can discuss the Kroger shopper mom with, because my gosh, that's a word I don't know how many times I've used in a past life in the in-store business model, now being exclusively e-commerce last 8 years. And Peter and I were like, when can we have a guest that we can discuss the offline business and how it intersects with digital? And that's really where I'd love to go next. In January 2nd, 2020, there was a defined strategy for every single one of us for the brands we represent and plans we had to execute with retail. You fast forward 7 months, and I want to jump to human attention. Human attention today is almost exclusively digital, given there's a great hesitancy to be outside, go in store. It's going to depend on which part of the country you are in, but for the most part, streaming media, the use of Google, the use of online tools, all of these have taken like a more centrist, commonplace nature in people's activity. How's your strategy shifted, and what are you looking for the balance of 2020 in terms of just human attention and being there where the consumer is?
Yeah. Well, even before COVID hit, I would tell you that content is king. And content is key to engagement with our brands and also engagement with shoppers and different platforms that we put out there. So I would just tell you, we've leaned into digital, social, mobile in just an enormous way. Some of my favorite things that, we've done out there last year, we've got a really great talent that we work with on a week in, week out basis. And Chef Robert Irvine, he's out there. He's got the number one show on Food Network right now, Restaurant Impossible. He has an incredible allegiance to the U.S. military. In fact, he does a ton of work with our government and has just always been a tremendous supporter of our troops. And so, as you know, NASCAR also does an enormous amount of work with our troops. They have a big program called Troops to the Track that we sponsor. They also have NASCAR Salutes that we sponsor, and it salutes all the great men and women in the uniform today. And so you begin to look at all those different opportunities, and you look across our retail landscape, and just about every May, almost every one of our major retailers also lean in and do big things with the USO. So it's just a natural combination with the three. And one of our important platforms from a Coca-Cola perspective is to do Coke with Fooding. That's what we're calling it now, Coke with Fooding. And last September, we did an amazing shoot creating outstanding content with Chef Robert Irvine, our Coca-Cola Racing family of drivers, and we called it the Coca-Cola Racing Family Dinner. Now, the irony of that is literally the next weekend, Denny Hamlin and Joey Logano, who are two of our Coca-Cola Racing family members, got into a little bit of an altercation and a little bit of a fight. We started to say, well, we're not going to have to call it the Coca-Cola Racing Family Feud. But family dinner content that we created last year was just exceptional. It was one of those unique moments, when you bring together these dynamic personalities. You have great beverages, Coca-Cola beverages, and amazing food that's been prepared by an outstanding chef. And you got the drivers involved in creating what they were going to all enjoy for dinner that night. But the conversation that just flowed out of that was so compelling. And we were able to leverage that and use it, with a key retailer in the marketplace. And it helped us inspire, that shopper mom to want to put something on like that herself with her family. So those types of things are invaluable, and we work on those every single day. We also are out trying to tell the stories of our Olympic athletes, or some of the work that we did last year with the Women's World Cup was just unbelievable, tied in with Alex Morgan and Kelly O'Hara and Crystal Dunn. But telling those stories is key, and people want to be able to enjoy that and watch it, and then hopefully enjoy a nice cold Coke while they're doing it.
And John, my big takeaway from what you said, the way I asked that question was more of, does the platform matter? And what I took away, which I think is a big one for our listeners here, is it's more about what you choose to communicate to consumers, and which results in content is supreme and content rules, versus the choice of the platform comes later. And it's not the other way around. You don't start with the platform and build your content. Is that a fair statement?
Yep. No, I think you nailed it. And, the key was it's all under the umbrella of the whole Coke with Food kind of initiative. And last year we got some great learnings out of some things we did with the Philadelphia Eagles, what we did with the Seattle Seahawks, again with Chef Robert Irvine and players, and creating, their favorite meals and making them together, and Chef Irvine putting a little bit of a spin on it. But that inspires, all the fans of the Eagles, and inspires all the fans of the Seahawks. You want to buy those recipes and meals from, an Albertsons or an Acme, and be able to put that on for their family and friends while they're watching the games.
Hey, John, we've talked a lot about how you connect the licensed assets you have to the individual consumers. I'm kind of curious about when you go out and thinking about acquiring those rights. Do you have, because Coca-Cola is more than just Coke. It's Coke, it's Diet Coke, it's Sprite, it's also Minute Maid, it's Simply, it's Fairlife, it's all the venture and emerging Brain Group brands. It's Gold Peak. It's a lot of different brands. How do you think about going out and acquiring a licensing right? Do you have brands in mind from the get-go, or is it more about the portfolio?
No, yeah. So, historically, it's always been about the portfolio, and we get, every category right that is available within the asset. But, we've begun to think about things a little bit differently in how we think about assets and the assets that we want and what we want them to be able to do for us. So, there are things that we're writing into our contracts today that in the past historically have not been part of, they've just not been a part of those contracts. So think about, the opportunities to be able to tap into teams' digital, whether it's talent or technology or production capability, really being able to tap into that to help create that great content that we can use. So it's dynamic, the environment's always changing. And so there's certain things that are valuable today, and there's certain things that were valuable yesterday that we don't need.
So John, this is a question that's more for our listeners. The title that you have and the work that you do today lends to a false sense of belief that this is a very glamorous job, and you spend a lot of time hanging out with Peyton Manning, and you go to every Super Bowl, and you can touch every NASCAR event. From what I'm listening to you speak, this is a lot of external partnership building, a ton of adaptation, a ton of do it on the fly, and deliver the best assets you can for the consumer to understand the true journey of Coke. The story you just told us about the partnership with Chef Robert Irvine, one of my personal chefs. I actually watch the show you refer to pretty often with my kids. This is not as glamorous as the title is made out to be, and it's not that you're hanging out at Super Bowls. Can you clarify that myth for our listeners that this is much more, and you're actually on your feet 24/7 is what it sounds like?
No, it's so true. It's so true. Listen, I would be lying if I didn't say that there are some fun aspects to the role, and certainly attending some of the events and things like that are fantastic. But listen, at the end of the day, these are huge investments. It's a meaningful portion of our direct marketing expense, and we've got to get a return on investment for it. We've kind of taken a different approach in the past couple of years. We've looked at it more as running it as a business than we've looked at it as something that's going to help make our brands, shinier and polish the Coca-Cola brand. We've begun to engage more in a lot of the work that we do with a national retail sales customer or a food service customer. We've begun to engage in collaborative business planning and really understanding what's important to that asset, what's important to us, and finding the common ground. A lot of assets right now, particularly colleges and universities, leagues, a lot of opportunity for us to collaborate around sustainability. Mercedes-Benz Stadium right here in Atlanta, they are leading the way in the space. If you go and read about what's happening in Seattle with the new Amazon or a venue that's being created out there, it's going to be named at the Amazon Sports Arena. But it's amazing the commitment to being green and really ensuring that recycling is taking place, and that we're looking at the opportunity to conserve water. So sustainability has become a hotbed, in this space as well. But really understanding in that collaborative business planning process what's important to the asset, what's important to us, and coming to common ground and having 2, 3, 4 strategies that we both agree are going to help optimize our partnership, optimize revenue for the pro sports team or league that we're working with, as well as for Coca-Cola. So we've begun to ensure we've got business plans. We've begun to ensure that we're inspiring our system to use the assets and optimize, again, that investment that we've put in place there. Partnerships are key. Having strong relationships, having trust amongst the partners is really important. And, building that requires a lot of time, energy, and effort to lean in and spend the time, the appropriate amount of time with those folks to really get to know them and have a good trust amongst each other. So it's a lot of fun, but at the same time too, it's a lot of work, and it's a huge investment, and we've got to make sure we get the right return.
John, when I met you a decade ago, I think we would both agree that Coca-Cola was decidedly a brand-focused enterprise. And I think with the advent of the consumer focus and big data around consumer behavior, that has, to a degree, shifted Coca-Cola to be increasingly more of a consumer-focused business. Can you give us your thoughts on that and maybe a couple examples of where you kind of see that happening?
Yep. I mean, look, at the end of the day, we're a company made up of a lot of brands. I think we have 400 brands across the globe. And I believe at this point in time, we're close to $24 billion brands in our portfolio. And, that's always going to be important. But at the end of the day, I would agree with you that we have certainly shifted focus, particularly in from a collaboration standpoint with our retailers, in getting very consumer-centric, consumer-focused. And you heard me use words today like, in my space, about being fan-focused and student-focused. That's still the consumer at the end of the day.
Sure.
We've shifted our portfolio. Our portfolio has certainly become even more dynamic. It's now all about beverages for life. So, we're as proud of every brand that we have, and we're leaning in, supporting all of those brands. But it's super important that we understand the consumer and what their interests are. How do we understand get in the mind of the student, and what are the brands that are important to them, and how do our brands support their needs? Whether that's a great brand with what they're enjoying at breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or whether that's a great brand of what they're doing when they're with their friends and family, what they're doing when they're at a sporting event, following the Irish. So it's important that we get a good understanding of the insights of what's important to students or what's important to fans, and how do we connect our brands accordingly in support of the different occasions and the consumer's interests. And so we've spent a lot of time, energy, and effort on that and shifting that model over the last several years.
You know, John, the acronym OBPPC is forever etched in my mind.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Sri?
So John, as I think through one of the, speaking of elite brands that are scaled, as I think through a beverage brand that's elite, some chunk of the business is also the food service business, aka the fountain business.
Yep.
In the last couple quarters, obviously, dining hasn't been the same anywhere in the nation, in our great nation, and sports venues, arenas have had several false starts. Like the baseball season is now in jeopardy. But regardless, even though it's running and the Yankees are better than the Dodgers, we know that. But in that situation, you still can't have fans indoors.
I'm throwing a flag on the play there, Sri.
I'm not sure we have a clear direction when this is going to radically change and we can have fans indoors, and there's no direction. Even if we have fans indoors, is it going to be socially distanced, or will we be able to go back and still have those amazing tailgate parties like we used to have once upon a time, which just feels like yesterday at Giant Stadium? But regardless, what is your viewpoint, or how are y'all approaching this recent change in behavior from consumers, which is largely driven by a situation rather than a forever state of permanence? And how are y'all adapting in the fountain business?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, at the end of the day, our food service business is super important, from the restaurants that we partner with and where we serve our products, to theme parks, to pro sports venues, to college campuses. I mean, it's an enormous part of our business. And, prior to COVID, we were innovating in this space on a regular basis. We rolled out the freestyle machine a little over 8 years ago, and that's just been a huge success in terms of being very, consumer centric and enabling consumers to find the brands that they want, make the mixes that they want. A Coca-Cola with orange vanilla emerged from the freestyle machine. But with what's transpired with COVID, obviously it's been a challenge because no one's going to these events right now. And so there's an impact on our sales to a degree there. It's a bigger, much larger impact in the restaurants and the frequency of folks going out to dine with their friends and family. But I will tell you, there's a lot of great work being done right now on when we do return, what is it that the fan's going to want? We're working on a touchless freestyle machine. We're working on touchless vendors. We think that from a bottle can standpoint, there's going to be a lot more interest and desire in terms of, give me, a bottle that I know no one has touched the top of, and I can unseal, and I feel like it's safe. So it's going to be interesting when things return and the protocols that we'll be putting in place with all of our different venues. But look, there's the A1 reason we're a part of those things is we want to be a part of that fan experience. We want our brands. We want everyone to remember when they were at that Dodgers game, Peter, and they were with their father, or they were with their spouse, or they were with their
2020 World Series champion Dodgers.
There you go.
I can't wait for the game.
Young child, and they're enjoying that experience, and they remember that Coke was a part of that. So it's always going to be a big reason why we lean into the assets.
Hey, John, if I could just ask a follow-up to that question, right? We talked a little bit about the fountain business, but an elite beverage brand, and the one that I come from in a past alma mater as well, largely DSD dependent. And which means you're in store every single day. You have to fulfill the distribution needs, merchandise the shelf. What's your outlook in that area as well? The fountain business is one thing that's anchored directly to the immediate consumption space. But what about the take-home space?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think habits are going to change. We're going to see some really interesting habits change during this time period in this space. Our juice business has been doing fantastic. That is not necessarily a DSD driven. Part of it is, but most of it is through the warehouse. But to just see the return to families having breakfast together again because so many people are working from home. There are habits that are being formed during this time period. The number of people that now have become accustomed to buying a 12-pack and having, Diet Coke in their refrigerator and the convenience of going downstairs and enjoying one throughout their day. So I think there's going to be a lot of new habits that are formed. We've seen the return of the stock up trip like never before. Frequency's way down, but people are going in and they are stocking up. And the average register ring is enormous right now. But it also comes with consequences. A convenience retail right now, or convenience retail business is just not seeing the same numbers they were seeing pre-COVID, right? People are, whether they're filling up for gas, the number of people going into the stores is markedly down. So our immediate consumption business is not as robust as it once was. So there's a lot of, and look, I think that when we come out of COVID, people aren't going to be clamoring to be able to go back in and grab a snack for their trip home or their trip to work or whatever it may be, and grabbing a nice cold Coke along with it. But there's habits that are certainly changing, and it's going to be fascinating to see how things change again once we go back to the old normal, if that's even possible.
Yeah. Hey, John, let's shift off of the business and more to the career aspect. The one thing I've always admired about you is how focused you are on mentorship for people that are younger, coming into the industry. What's the kind of advice that you give to them now to be successful, where I know it's unrealistic that it's not the norm to have someone who's been at a company for 20 plus years, the way it probably was for our parents. But what's the kind of advice you give them for, just in general, their success in pursuing a career in the space that you're in right now?
Yeah. Look, I'm a huge believer in the consumer product goods space. The CPG industry is amazing. I've obviously been a part of it for going on 30 years. It's awesome. I'll never forget, I was a part of a shopper marketing share group several years ago, and there was also a sales leadership share group. They're the ones that spun out and created the shopper marketing share group. And there was a sales leader who's the head of sales for Del Monte. I'll never forget, we were having dinner that evening, and he was giving a toast. He was retiring, and he's like, "This is the greatest industry to be in, and it's amazing that we get paid to do it," was what he said. But it is an awesome industry. It's super dynamic. There's so many different things that you can do. There's so many cross-functional roles that you can take on, from finance to PR to brand to sales to product supply to legal. It's human resources. It's just amazing, right? So I'm a huge believer in the industry. It's awesome. For advice for those that are getting into it and new in their career, I just encourage people to be patient. Be a sponge in the roles that you're in. Be bold in what you do. If there are big ideas that come down and you're in a sales role from your brand leadership, how do you take that to the next level? How do you do that bigger and better than any of your peers that you're technically competing against to be able to progress through the organization? Create your own routines. Create routines that are going to lead to your success, and modify them and adjust them to ensure they lead to success. Be process oriented. Follow a process. Like, it kind of goes back to the routine piece. Follow a routine, but stay true to that process once you've got it. And be open to new ideas. Be open to opportunities to learn cross-functional roles, because it's only going to make you a better general manager if your aspirations are to move through the organization and to ultimately be in a president of a business unit or a general manager role. So I think it's really important to ensure that you get cross-functional opportunities, roles under your belt in order to be able to deliver on your aspirations.
Great.
So, John, that leads us to the last question for today, which is really a lightning round. I state two things, you get to pick. And of course, when we have a great guest and we have amazing conversations, you don't know where the time flies. And that's where we are today. So, question one, Bengals or Steelers?
There is one answer, the Bengals. I don't even call them by name. It's like the team up north from Ohio.
Reds or Cubs?
Reds.
Denison
provocative.
Denison or Ohio Wesleyan?
Denison, go Big Red.
Tiger or Bubba?
Oh, that's a good one, Tiger.
Notre Dame or Michigan? I feel bad even asking that one.
Yeah, Notre Dame. You can't, again, another name I can't even mention by name.
Serena or Venus?
Ah, that's a good one. Venus. All right, so we got to bring in the reliever.
Anyhow, last two questions, John. Football or golf?
Foot golf.
Foot golf, yeah. And lastly, Dodgers or Yankees?
How about Cincinnati Reds?
Oh, true to his team. I totally respect you for that.
Hey, the Reds did well against those guys back in the 70s. Both.
I want to, before we close this out, I want to remind all our audience that to follow us, see all of us on social media, go to Linktree/CPG guys. That's linktr.ee/CPG guys. And if you really would, we'd greatly appreciate it if you'd go to Apple Podcasts and rate and subscribe to our podcast. You can get there by going to tinyurl.com/Apple CPG podcast. Shree had to jump off thanks to a power outage. But I'll say goodbye on his behalf. But John, it was such an incredible pleasure to have you join us today. You provided our audience with some great insight as to what's going on, and thank you so much.
No problem. I enjoyed it, Peter. It was great. Congratulations on this. You guys are doing great work.
Great. So thank you, everyone, and we look forward to you joining us on the next episode of Consumer Engagement in an Omnichannel World. Take care.
The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.